Bienvenidos a otro episodio de Time to Call Your Sister. Aquí María Eugenia y yo, que hoy entramos en un tema súper interesante, porque en inglés se llama ageism, en español
Edadismo.
es edadismo, pero no me
Oh,
gusta ese término.
bueno,
Yo pienso
yo lo uso.
prejuicios por la edad. Yo diría que esa es la mejor manera de decir, prejuicios por la edad.
Sí.
Entonces, María Eugenia me trajo este tema recientemente porque ambas, de diferentes maneras, a cada rato estamos llamándonos en relación a situaciones que estamos viviendo en nuestra realidad corporativa a raíz pues, de la edad que tenemos. Y cuando Mariana me trajo, o sea, cuando empezamos a hablar del tema, yo dije, wow, yo no me había dado cuenta en la medida que fui entrando más en el tema de cuánto esto está tocando mi vida y está tocando la de María Eugenia también. Entonces, pues es una invitación a las personas que nos escuchan a que escuchen un poco sobre este tema que tiene que ver con algo completamente natural de todo ser humano, que es el que todos vamos a madurar, todos nos vamos a poner más viejos, y cómo el mundo un poquito está todo el tiempo mandándote mensajes de que eso no es lo que queremos que pase. ¿Cómo me puedo mantener más joven? ¿Cómo me puedo quedar más joven? ¿Cómo me puedo ver más joven? Y a la misma vez, pues eso cuando se transfiere al mundo corporativo, pues tiene unas consecuencias que afectan nuestra vida. Entonces, un poquito ese va a ser el tema y tenemos un gran invitado que voy a dejar que Marigenia sea la que lo presente. Así es que Marigenia, go ahead.
Porque él es amigo mío y compañero de trabajo. Pero un dato que quiero mencionar antes de presentar a Adam es que ageism puede pasar hacia arriba o hacia abajo, o sea, gente mayor y gente joven. Eh, Pero bueno, vamos a entrar en el tema más a fondo con Adam. Um, okay, so first of all, this is the first podcast we record in English, and I
Yay!
am so excited and honored that Adam said yes to the invitation. Adam, in addition to being a dear friend through work, but a dear friend nonetheless. He has over 20 years of experience working in the HR, human resource industry. He then transitioned within the team that he and I work together. He transitioned from HR to working he's the team lead for team training, employee training, and special events. And I remember when he and I first had a conversation that led us to become friends. We were in Barcelona at an offsite, and he sat with me and he said, "I want to learn Spanish." He's a Spanish speaker, but he's more
Wow.
comfortable, obviously, in English. I want to learn Spanish. Would you mind having one-on-ones with me? And I said, "Oh, absolutely. I love speaking Spanish, obviously." And so that led to a really cool friendship. We met for that, and then we would work. We would talk about our kids. We would talk about everything. And so, Adam, welcome to Time to Call Your Sister. I already introduced.
Bienvenido, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cualquier amigo de María Eugenia es amigo mío.
Oh, gracias. Yeah, it would be. I could try to say to converse in Spanish, but I think that the quality of the experience might be a little less for your listeners. But maybe the next time I come back, I'll be
No, bueno, pero
más variante.
por lo menos nos puedes decir cómo te sientes ahora con el español. Desde que empezaste a practicarlo, ¿crees que lo puedes entender más?
Absolutely. It's just getting over that hump of the vulnerability of knowing what you want to say but not being able to say it as clearly as you want. But that's the experience, and like Maruheni and I have talked about before, is like so many Latino people who come to the United States, they experience that every day.
Yeah.
And so I try to remember that as well, both as a support but also a reminder that I have the privilege to be able to switch that off whenever I want, but some people can't. So
Yeah, that's true.
just keep
Why-
learning.
An exhibit
Así.
A by the one, because I mean, I might not struggle the same way some of the other Spanish speakers in the U.S. do, but yeah, I mean, you're always gonna be more comfortable in your mother tongue or sí, el
Yeah.
idioma.
And I'm even a notch lower than Marigenia. Marigenia is more fluent than I. O sea, I speak English fluently like she does, but I can see sometimes how doing it in Spanish just flows more easily for me.
Oh,
Yep.
So,
always for me as well.
Yeah.
yeah. So let's dig into the topic, Marigenia. I think that the first thing that I think we could address would be for Adam to share with us how would you define ageism in how would you define ageism, first of all?
Yeah, I think I would probably define it as just when you're making an assessment of somebody based on their age, as simply as that. And as Maru said, it could be you could be making an assessment on somebody because they're older than you or they're younger. And I think one of the things that's really interesting about just the topic of ageism is that it happens both ways. So, and this I think has been going on as long as people have existed. The older generation has looked at the younger generation and said, that's it. They're going to ruin the world. And then the younger generation looks at the older generation and says, like, why are you so slow at everything? Why don't you get that the world is changing? And I think as we get older, we find ourselves in both of those positions where I might look at so I'm firmly planted in Generation X. I would look up at the boomers and say, oh, you don't get it. You don't get it. Let us explain to you the right way to do things. And then I look down at Gen Y and go, oh, these are the people who are going to be taking care of me. Like, oh, we're in trouble. So, but my parents did the same thing, and their grandparents the same thing, and so it goes.
That's true, completely true. I'm also Generation X. Although I sometimes feel I'm a boomer I don't know if it's that I feel I'm a boomer or just that my kids sometimes, oh my God, you're such a boomer, because that has become like a slang. You're such a boomer. I don't see myself as a boomer at all.
Especially with my kids, especially when it comes to social media. Because social media was not a thing when we went to school to study marketing and started our jobs. And no, this is what the past 10 years social media has boomed. And so I'm trying to make like an Instagram story or Instagram post, and I ask my daughter, and they're like, "Oh, you're such a boomer."
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to, and you know
We
that
laugh.
take. Yeah, I laugh, and that takes me to. So when I think of ageism, and of course we're gonna concentrate here about this term and what it brings to the workplace. But before digging into the workplace, when I think about it, I feel that we go through life, at least now, I don't know, as you mentioned, every generation, looks at the other one from from their point of view. However, I think that because of social media, now this has been more, se ve más marcado. It's like you see it more.
More planted in the.
Yes, and then everything, everybody's going to age, period. However, the way we are relating to that, it's kind of like a resistance. How can I resist my body looking older? How can I resist my face looking older? How can I resist the color of my hair looking older? So everything around, I'm speaking about my experience with this term. Everything around me tells me, don't age. Do anything not and I'm constantly, I'm always doing workout. I'm eating healthy. I don't want to look old. I want to keep my body. I don't want to look like I'm 15. It's not that, or 30, but I don't want to look like I'm this old lady. So
What
go
I
ahead.
would say, sorry to cut you off, but what I would say is, I think you want to look in a way that is okay with you, regardless of your age. It's okay with you. And by the way, we're like, of course, you're representing Generation X, but think about like people in their early 20s, or yeah, people in their early 20s that are starting a new job for the first time. Oh, I don't have enough experience. Oh, they must go through a similar situation or experience as they embark in their career.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that has to do. I'm not gonna say low self-esteem, but just self-esteem in general. Oh, I wanna look.
Which takes me to when I transition what goes through my mind with this topic. I mean, I think of myself, I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own coaching business. So my challenges are different than if I would be in the workplace right now in corporate America. But I see how it's very scary when you start to age and you're part of corporate America, and how the way I see everyone looking into this, instead of seeing this person full of knowledge, they start to see this person as a person that it's costing me. I see the younger people talking about there's going to be a tsunami. They call it the tsunami. Our generation is going to be a tsunami of the 60s, because, when we become 60, because it's a whole bunch of people that are going to be 60s. And younger people see us as a threat, as a burden, instead of seeing it as a bunch of people full of knowledge. So if I bring this to corporate, Adam, that's where I want to hear from you. How is that experience when you're in the human resources and you're seeing these people? We are all going to be aging, and it's a reality up to today. I don't know if this will change in the future, because there's going to be a lot more of us. But up
Yeah.
to today, they don't want people over 60 in corporate America unless you are the CEO. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right that I feel like we're reaching a really interesting inflection point, because especially when we think about, let's say, a lot of areas, some of our corporations that have been around, even some of our technical corporations that have been around for a while, those college kids who started everything, they're now, in some cases, they're grandparents. And how is that changing? And I think what we're seeing is that I think we're just starting to see the impact of that in some of these spaces, because um, I think about how, going back to something you'd said earlier around like how we look and how we feel. I think a lot of times, as we're getting older, we may be getting older, but we don't feel older. But how
Yeah.
we're seen by other people is different. And I think about when I was in my 20s, and I was thinking about what would it be like to be in my 50s, and I was like, ooh, that's like, will I even be able to get out of bed in the morning? And now last year I turned 50, and I'm thinking about, okay, well, what is it like to be 80? And but I see my parents who are now in their 80s, and they're still very active and moving around, and I think, well, maybe it's not going to be so scary as I thought. But as a 20-year-old, 80 would be like one foot in the grave, like practically. And as you get older, you see these things. And I think that we'll see, I wonder if we're going to see a version of that in the corporate world as well, where this whole generation that was the kind of grew up being like the vanguards who were like breaking all the norms, now they're the establishment. But now that you're the
Exactly.
establishment, is like, well, we still feel pretty rebellious. We still feel pretty innovative. And does that ultimately, because that population is so big, does that maybe change more of the perception that we've seen? I think we're still in a state of wait and see, but we are on that inflection point, I think.
Yeah. And why do you think, what is the reasoning behind thinking that once the person hit 50, I'm just putting that number out. I don't know if that's the number that really breaks it or not. What is the reasoning behind once that person is 50, we want to start getting rid of them?
Yeah, I think part of it may just be logistics, where I mean, just the way that, especially in the United States, the way our country works is once you turn 50, your mail starts looking different. When it comes in the mail, you start getting, you know,
Yeah.
AARP memberships and things
Yes.
about retirement, and eventually, have you thought about these cremation services? It's like the company, or the country starts looking at us differently, so we start looking at ourselves a little bit differently. Um, but yeah, I think Ana-Rosa, go back. Ask me the question again. I think I had something else, but I
No, I just
went
want
out
to,
of my head.
I wonder. as a human resources person, what is it that makes people in human resources think that at 50 you have to start, okay, this person will only give me 5 more years. Like I was talking to an executive the other day, and she's a very high up executive, and she was telling, she was explaining how this all restructuring process was going through the company, and she mentioned, so we have, I have like three old, she said it in Spanish, pero she said we have like three old ladies.
How did she say it in Spanish?
Tengo unas personas mayores. So, and when she said the age, and I said, how old are they? And she said, our age. And I'm like, dude, that's my age. How, what's the reasoning behind thinking that that person can only give you 5 more years?
Let me ask the question maybe differently. How does ageism affect hiring, promoting, and retaining employees?
That's yeah.
And we keep stressing how it affects people over the age of 50, but also when it comes to regarding this question, also people that are starting their career. How does ageism affect the hiring process for them? And then for the older generation, promoting these people, retaining the job retention aspect of it.
Yeah, I think each one of those segments I think about them a little differently just from what I've observed. And let's start with promotion. I feel like this is the area where, at least from my experience, I've seen the least amount of ageism, in part because a lot of the people because I was thinking about, as we're talking about, like, what's the difference between age and tenure? Whereas we say age is certainly kind of how old you are, tenure is how long you've been with the company. And in many cases, tenure is actually a valuable thing. And it goes the other way when you're joining. It's like, oh, well, you just joined, so you don't know what you're talking about. But I've been here for 20 years, and so I have a level of credibility. And so I might be older in years, but because I'm able to pair that with a tenure that has given me a level of credibility, that may be less of an issue. I may actually have a better opportunity to get promoted because of that tenure component. Now, if we go backwards and we talk about retention, similar, I think that this is where I feel like there's a little more of a balance around, I guess, a little more meritocracy around your skills and abilities. Because if I look at what you're able to do, I'm going to be less concerned about, how old you are, but just like, do you have a skill that we're losing that is critical, that I need to retain? And at that point in time, I think the age is less of a factor. Now, if we go to hiring, this is where I think we start to see it's almost like the perfect storm, because you have no tenure, but you're also faced with whatever stigmas might come with being older. So I'm looking, I think that whether we would do it intentionally or unintentionally, it's hard to say. But if you're looking at candidates and you're saying, this person, I don't know this person, I'm just looking at the resume and I see that they have 45 years of prior work experience, it's going to play a factor, I think, whether we want it to or not. Similarly, you could say this person has a year of work experience, and that's, and I think that's a factor as well. But I would see it as those, like promotion, less of an issue, the least amount, retention, less so, but the hiring, I do think, and I think we were viewing that TED Talk with the woman who was speaking about how, all of this experience, and then couldn't, and somebody was even saying maybe you should not talk about any of the jobs you did prior to the 90s. And I remembered looking at that, watching that video and thinking, I just always assumed that was a good thing. I just assumed, like, saying, wow, look at how much work this person has done.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, well, if I was in a position where I needed to look, where do I stop? Where do I stop? And just maybe I don't say anything about it. I never really thought about that before. And again, because when you're younger, you just assume that's never going to be an issue. And as you start to reach that transition point, whether 50 is the magic number or something else, at the very least, you start thinking about it in a way you never did before.
Yeah, that's a fair point for sure. Yeah, well, the fact that you start saying, okay, should I include this in my resume because it says
Yeah,
the 90s, or should I just not, you know?
exactly.
Yeah, when I'm going through my resume, um, what is being recommended to me? Oh no, don't include the years. Because why? So it leads me to believe that they are hiring biases, you
Hmm.
know? Um, Specifically, and of course my experience has to do with older age, but I wonder if younger, I mean, that's even trickier because maybe they don't have years to include because they're just starting, you know?
I think
So,
it's a challenge both ways. It's a
Yeah.
challenge both ways because also you see these new positions, entry level positions, and when you see the requirements, they're requiring a lot of experience that these people don't have. And then your pay level doesn't really connect with what you're also asking for. It's really challenging. This is a very, I mean, we could take this conversation to so many different areas.
I remember being in the job, and we were hiring someone. We had an opening, and I remember thinking, I don't want to hire someone too young because that younger generation is so entitled.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with their experience. It has to do with, okay, so do I want to deal with the entitlement, or maybe an older, I don't mean old, but a more senior person, with regards to their age, will give me what I need without the attitude and entitlement that the younger generation has. So and I understand what you're saying, Adam. I think a lot of times with the younger generation, the internship plays such a big role because then the companies where they had their internships are more prone to hiring them
Hmm.
because they've already seen their capabilities, their attitude. I think attitude plays a huge part. I wonder if attitude plays a part when with the hiring process. But regardless of that, I want you to answer that. But regardless of that, it sounds, based on what you're saying, that there are no hiring biases regarding age. It's more regarding experience. Is that right?
Well, I think that no, I think it's a little more complicated than that. I mean, I think that there are we're all just constantly walking around with either conscious or unconscious bias based on our own experiences. Like if you've had positive experiences working with people who are older than you, and you have a candidate who happens to be older, you're going to take those past experiences and put them on the new person. If
Hmm.
you've had lots of experience working with people with little experience, but you've found that they're so motivated, and you can, for lack of a better word, mold them or shape them and to be, whatever performers you want them to be, you may be more inclined there. So I do think it's like the past experience is just always inevitably going to have a bias.
For
But I
sure.
don't think that it's necessarily. I mean, I think that it's just something that whenever we're interviewing or hiring somebody, we just always have to check ourselves on because of that, and because so much of it is unconscious. I think just a lot of ways that you can counter those biases is in the questions that you ask, and just making sure like you're really focusing on, are the questions that I'm asking getting towards the skills that I need for this job? And if I just try to block out my conscious or unconscious bias as much as possible, and I see this person for just the answers they've given me, do I feel like, are they meeting their expectations? I think that's the counter. But yeah, I think in terms of the pay that's offered, I think that that's an area where I've seen less bias. But the challenge remains, can you get the interview? if you get the interview, do you get the offer? And I think those are, it really becomes dependent on the bias of the people involved in the hiring process, for better or worse.
That brings me to two things. Number one, the level of self-awareness of the person who's doing who's doing this work. Because for sure, what you said, these biases are working on us all the time.
Right.
Whether we're aware of it or not, they are there all the time, as they are in the other side. Like for me, if I'm going through the interviewing process and my age is a vulnerable age according to the culture, the world, the society, I'm going to have that in my mind as I'm going through the interview process. I can't get that out of myself. So same with the person who's doing the interviewing. Those biases play such a big role. Because I see it in my coaching practice when I see executives talking about millennials or Gen X, Gen Zs, and it's all based on their own personal experience. If they had big challenges with a millennial, all millennials are that way.
Yeah.
If they had it with a Gen X, all Gen Xers are lazy and
Exactly.
entitled. Or millennials want to do, they have, that's where self-awareness kicks in.
Yeah.
And that, for me, that makes you an effective leader. When you are aware, and then if you're in human resources, you're going to be more effective in your hiring process if you can check in with yourself. Like you said, what are my biases and what role are they playing in this hiring process? And I think that's the number one, being
Do you
self-aware.
think, Adam, do you think that most eight, I'm generalizing, but generally speaking, HR leaders have that self-awareness of not to be biased on, like the example I just gave. I'm not an HR person by any means, but the example I just gave where I said, okay, let's hire someone a little bit older because we don't want to deal with entitlement. That's probably based on an experience that I had.
Yeah.
That's actually true. It is based on an experience. And so I wonder if most HR, because I'm not an HR, what should I say, not just leader, but like
That's not
expert
your
or
area.
whatever,
Yeah.
because I'm not self-aware that way. Do you think most people in the HR community?
Yeah. I'm gonna say no, and then I'll follow that up with, because HR people are people too. And so
Exactly.
we are as susceptible to the biases
As
and
anybody else.
preferences as anyone else is. I think there are two things that can help with this. One is, can you have multiple people involved, especially if we're talking about the hiring process, can you have multiple people involved in the process who can almost be on alert for the other people's biases? So, if you hear somebody say, well, I'm a little bit nervous about hiring a person from Gen Y because they're just not, they're just too entitled. Okay, so you say that, I hear that and say, okay, so the question I would ask then, and I think this is a way you can try to offset that, is what questions could we ask this candidate to get a better sense of whether they have a lean towards entitlement or not? Because entitlement happens at every age,
At
depending.
every age. Yep.
You see people who will come in. Sometimes you might have a person who comes in with 20 years of experience and says, I'm not even going to answer that question because I've got 20 years of experience. This is just
So
a
true.
formality waiting for you to give me the job. That could happen there as well. So how do we ask questions? But absolutely entitlement and the question of, is a person going to work hard, or are they going to be expecting everything to be given to them? So questions around, tell me about a situation in your past job where you didn't get what you wanted. How did you deal with that? How did you help? How did you, find other ways to compromise? Tell me examples when you had to make a concession and someone else had to make a concession. How did that feel? How did you work with it? Like starting to get a sense that if people are like, well, hey, I just keep yelling or talking louder until the other person gives up. Okay, okay, that's a pretty good clue. That may be a little bit of an issue there. so I think the questions there, and then just other people. I mean, we all have blind spots, and we just need each
We
other
do.
to see them.
I loved your answer because I believe that that's where collaboration kicks in, and then having if you have a team in HR, like you said, you guys are humans like any other one. My experience is working more with executives than with also with HR, but again, it's I don't work with HR. I work for me. I'm working with the executives,
Mhm.
so or the leaders, and the self awareness is something that it's becoming one of the key soft skills to have in the future if we want to succeed.
Yeah,
And most
absolutely.
of it is because of what you're saying. We have biases, we around ageism and around so many other things. And also the lack of self-awareness of our own impact when we
Yeah,
step in a room or we leave the room. So
yeah,
so the fact that you're saying you're offering this idea or this suggestion that checking with yourself but also having more people in the table
yeah.
allows for a more fair hiring process, which at the end it's going to be benefit for your company.
And I,
I mean,
oh,
oh,
sorry.
sorry.
I love the example you gave, the question that you tell me about a situation where you didn't get what you want. I think you're testing for attitude. And
Hmm.
I wish people would hire for attitude more
Mm,
than skills, but because you can teach skills, but you
mm,
cannot teach attitude. And
For
so
sure.
if that is something that will A, test attitude, and B, kind of like you're checking in on your bias, that's great.
Hmm.
yeah, I was thinking about as we were starting this conversation. I was thinking about a time when, so in a prior company I worked for, I was a hiring manager, and I was the trainer that got everybody onboarded into their new roles. And I would refer to the people that we just hired as the new kids. And it didn't matter like what age they were. I just said they were the new kids because for me it was a tenure thing, and I said it more as a term of endearment, like the new kids, like I'm going to
Yeah,
help you
yeah,
along, like I'm going to take care of you, right? Because that's what I think about with a very paternal instinct there. And I remember my manager at one point kind of come here, he just said you shouldn't call them new kids because first of all, none of them are children. And the funny thing about it is that when I was doing this, I was probably like under 30. So I still even I was a kid
You
too,
were a
but I was like
kid.
but I had the tenure, so I felt older, right? But she said, there's like people like, none of these people are kids for starters. And second, like, I mean, people are sensitive to those things. And sometimes when they may think like, I think I know what you mean. Like, I know you're thinking about it in a caring way, but it could also be seen as being a little patronizing. Like you are at a different level than me because you have less experience and I'm going to bring you up to my level. And it was, well, first of all, I was really embarrassed because I didn't mean it that way,
Yeah.
but I also recognize that okay, I can now see that. But it was an example of like I would have just continued to do it and not even realized maybe what the impact was unless somebody had said, "Hey, I'm just noticing this and think about it from this perspective as well."
And then that speaks about the person that receives the comment because you were able to check in with yourself
Yep.
and see how, yeah, okay, I can see how this is not exactly how I should express myself. Whereas depending of where you are in terms of your, I would say, I'm going to say shame because that's kind of like the
Oh
biggest thing
yeah.
that I do. Depending of where you are in your shame, that's where you're going to receive this comment from. And then you could have said, who does he think he is to tell me that I can't call people, so
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
also, again, goes back to self-awareness.
Sure.
that's a great observation, and kudos to whoever your manager was, because that would have just I wouldn't have noticed that, and I can see
Hmm.
myself doing that. Or just terms of endearment, as you said, as a term
Hmm.
of endearment. Oh yeah, the new kids, bringing them under
Hmm.
my wing. Yeah, well,
Absolutely. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
it can be
Yeah.
patronizing for sure.
I one of the things that I'm taking away from this conversation with you, Adam. Well, I'm taking a few, but one of them is the difference between aging and tenure.
Yeah.
Tenure.
Yeah.
Tenure.
Tenure.
Um,
Yeah.
I came into this conversation without that in my mind. And it plays a huge role because if you're in a company, regardless of your age, and you've been there for 15, 20 years, you have a sense of kind of like ownership. I don't think the word is ownership. I think it's more you feel safe. You feel like, okay, this is part of me.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with my age. I've been here 15 years, so I have some sort of credibility or safety. You can go
Hmm.
different ways with that.
Yep.
And it's different than the fact that we're talking about ageism. But that brings me to, if you are lucky enough to be in a company where you've been years and you are in that place where you have tenure,
Tenure.
years of tenure there,
Sure.
great. But if you're not, and you are in the vulnerable position of having to go through hiring process at your late 40s, 50s, late 50s, as the world is going, we're seeing people in their 60s going to interviews.
That's right.
You know, is there
Yeah.
anything that you would suggest to that group of people that are in that vulnerable spot where they need to go through the hiring process?
Well, I think that there are some, there are just some elements that are always going to put us at a slight disadvantage just because of the volume of candidates is
Hmm.
always going to be a factor. So if I think about, let's say, a hiring manager, let's say if you're getting 100 applicants for a role, without even looking at age, you're already competing against 100 people. And you think about a person who's got to look through 100 resumes. Um, I was once, as a kind of a side comment, I when I graduated from college, my original goals, I wanted to be a screenwriter, and so I did screenwriting work. And one of the things that in the classes they told me was that we're going to read 1,000 scripts a day. So actually, what we're doing is we're looking for reasons not to read your script before we're looking at reasons to read your script. And I
Wow.
think that there's an element of that, especially with some of these roles where, like, if you've got 100 applicants, the first thing you may be looking for is, why do I want to continue reading this? It could be the resume is sloppy. It could be your email address doesn't look professional. I mean, and again, those biases start becoming that filter for us, for better or worse. And oh,
Because you're
Wow.
and
human, and that's how,
because you're
yeah.
human. So I think that if you go back to, okay, what's the advice? Probably the number one thing is just to know that you're going to have to be persistent, and there may be many cases where you apply for roles and you don't even get the opportunity to sell your experiences and your benefits because somebody has looked at your resume and said, just either not enough experience, too much experience, and you're just out. And so I think that in the same way that hiring managers are looking at volume, candidates and applicants need to be looking at volume as well.
Yeah.
So there may be a place that you really want to work, but you may have to, almost like applying for colleges too. Like there may be this place you really want to go, but if you don't get in there, like where are there other options? And I think thinking about going back with tenure and experience, I think there's an element of, I mean, I don't know whether it's fair or not. There's this element of proving your worth, and
Hmm.
and I know that in many cases when people have asked me, okay, well, how do you get to be in this job? I see, you get to be in this job by doing these other jobs first and building this experience and this credibility and learning from those things. And it may be that we have people who have been in the workplace for 30, 40 years who know that they can do this other job. But if you're not getting it, what's the next level?
Hmm.
And do you have to, fair or not, do you have to rebuild that credibility with another organization? I mean, I think really, I guess I would say persistence and then just volume. So apply for, if they're going to look at 100 candidates, you look at 100 jobs. I don't know if there's 100 jobs out there, but you know what I mean? Just something
Yeah,
that
yeah,
just
yeah.
increase your options,
Yeah, yeah.
because there are so many factors that will be out of your control. Fair or
Yeah.
not?
What do you mean when you say persistence?
Don't
Like,
give up.
Um,
no, 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 I know, but sorry, let me rephrase the question. Do you mean persistence with a specific job that you think, oh my God, I'm like a shoe, this is like a shoe-in for me, like a perfect fit for me? Or do you mean persistent in keep applying to as many jobs as you can?
I think it's the second, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that I think it would be very easy to, let's say, apply for 5 jobs, get either 5 rejections or worse, nothing. 5, I don't know if they call it ghosting when you're applying for a job, but you
Yeah.
basically just send out your resume and you're like, did it get stuck in junk mail? Like, did I actually even get it out? You just don't hear anything back. You said, well, I guess I haven't heard back. It's been 5 months. I guess I'll just let it go. But when you feel that sense of discouragement, I mean, failure to some degree, but just like the disappointment, you just have to keep persisting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In part because, I mean, what are the options other than? But I think just knowing that this is going to be something that you're going to need to be really, continue to work at and work for, and that there is going to be, like with many things, there's probably going to be more failure than there's success. I think also, I mean, if you can take something from that to say, what am I learning? What am I learning from these failures? So, for example, if I'm sending out 10 resumes and nobody's even responding, maybe my resume isn't presenting my skills and abilities effectively. How could I go back and look at reviewing my resume? A tip that I was given many, many years ago, which I've found to be, I think is a pretty great one, is if you look at a job description and you see what are the qualities and the responsibilities and so forth, then go back and look at your resume. Are there similar words and phrases? And if there aren't, are there ways that you could include them? So
Mm-hmm.
if it says something like looking for a dynamic public speaker, now don't make them up. If you haven't done it, don't say you've done it. But if you have, but maybe you didn't call it out, then you go back into your role and say, like, I've had experience engaging in dynamic speaking events or something like that, because so many of these searches are based off of algorithms now that are looking for keywords. And
AI can
again,
help a lot in that.
that's right, it
So,
can.
so you're saying that we should tailor the resume to the
Of
job?
course. Yeah.
Each
Yeah.
I
each resume
Yeah,
might be different. Okay.
that's right.
Awesome. Awesome. That's
Yeah.
good. Okay, well, I don't want to keep Adam too long, so
Espérate, espérate, I have one more question. One more
oh, okay.
question.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if
sure.
you, if you have, if ay, espérate, ¿cómo era que te lo iba a decir? Oh my God, I switched to Spanish immediately. Oh,
Yo en
what I
esto,
was gonna say, and I don't know if this falls in ageism. I think it does, but a lot of women sometimes take breaks because they want to be 10 years with their children
Yeah,
and then go back to the workforce. And by the time they go back, they're already in their 40s.
yeah.
So, what recommendations would you give to women who great for them that they decided that they wanted to stay with
spend
their children and now they want to go back to work. And the reason why I ask you this is because I have so many well, I've had through the years so many clients that they don't even dare
Mm,
to go back to job hunting because they feel so shameful because they feel,
mm,
oh my God, I only devoted my life to only my kids and I'm no one
yeah.
now because they're gone. And what encouragement or what would you say to those women that would, or is if it's a real thing that they are freaking out because they're going to go back to the job hunting?
and how do HR people perceive that, like see that? Like I remember one time I was one of those women that uh I took a break, like a 2-year break to raise my kids, uh and 2 years is nothing.
It's
Uh,
nothing. I'm
but
talking
but
about,
they
uh-huh,
no no no,
Yeah.
but that's my experience. But let's say 5-10 years, how
20.
do people in HR or even hiring people that are like hiring managers, do they think, oh gosh, they took 10 years, or do they see it as a, do they admire that?
Mm. Yeah, I think that I really think that you're going to see it being very dependent on the company and the individuals. Um, I actually feel like, let's just say, in the last 10 or 15 years, I believe that people are becoming a lot smarter about this, in the sense that they're recognizing just the potential that these candidates have, that you have these two experiences, and then you have individuals who are, who are showing an interest and an excitement to return to the workplace. Well, isn't that what we want in people we hire? We want them to be excited. We want them to be motivated and energized to be in the places that we hire. So I think now I can say that whether it was explicitly said or not, there was probably a time when people would look at that and say, this feels risky to me. A lot of this is about risk, right? Because they say, like, I'm going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe by the end of the day, in benefits and recruiting and so forth on this person to come in, and I want to make sure that they're a good fit. But if you're too risk adverse, then you miss out on so many great candidates. And I really feel like, I mean, we weren't really talking about diversity, but I think that this is the case for the business case for diversity, from my perspective, is that we only have the perspectives that we have lived. And they limit us, for better or worse. They limit
the
us
biases.
to a certain set of boxes and capabilities. And when we bring in people who have different experiences, what does a woman who has taken time, or a man who's taken time off to take care of raise their children, what experiences, what perspectives do they have as a consumer? From around empathy, we think about this is a market.
As you're speaking.
This is a market, right? And we have, and going back to the ageism as well, if everyone in our organization is from the same generation, and we're trying to sell products to all generations, how can we put ourselves in the position of every single category that we would want to sell? We need to have people from different, ethnicities, different genders, different ages, because if we want to have the biggest impact in our business, we have to have those perspectives, and we put ourselves at a financial disadvantage by not taking advantage of those
I love
the
that.
diversity of those roles.
Yeah, I love that. I love that explanation, that that answer that you just gave. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's all about what biases do you have that keep you from really opening yourself up to things that are different than you. Because
Yep.
it's a lot of fear behind those biases that keep you from opening yourself up for them.
Exactly.
Before, Marijena, before you do the questions that I think that you want to do,
We have
I
some rapid fire questions, Adam, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay.
I want to add a piece of some sort of tips on mental health regarding this aging situation, because it does affect our mental health directly. When you're going through this aging, whereas you're in a company and you're afraid that your clock is ticking, or you are starting to go to an interview, or you're a young person who is going to go through a job process and you fear because you don't have any experience. How can you have experience at 23? Come on. And there's so much stress in them because they don't. Regardless of your age, all this work, job hunting, or relating yourself to the workplace, I think it triggers a lot of messages in our head that affects our mental health. It creates a lot of anxiety, feelings of, I'm not good enough,
Imposter
I'm too
syndrome.
old, or I'm too young, or, all these things that really can pull you down. And I think that, number one, have people in your life that walk through the process with you. Reach out to people that can support you, that can be there for you. If you don't have a friend, if you don't have somebody, hire a coach, hire a therapist, have someone that can teach you. Even your grandma can have a lot of, wisdom that can help you and be part of your journey, just supporting you and holding your hand. Sometimes that's what old people can do for us, older people can do for us. But I don't know if you, Adam, have any other hint or any other idea on that piece of
Yeah.
How can we support one another, and how can we take care of our mental health as we're going through this process?
Well, I think everything you mentioned as far as just a network of people that can help you. I'm also I'm a big fan of professional therapy, because I think that there is the reality is that like we have our friends and family networks, but we're not, and we're trained to listen, but we're not always trained to deal with what we take on for our people, right? Because we care for them,
Uh-huh.
and trained professionals, they have this ability, they've been trained to take, our pain or our sadness and then dispose of it safely, versus
Yes.
the rest of us, normal people, we take it and sometimes we don't dispose of it, we keep it.
We want to
And
fix it.
so
We want to fix the problem for
that's right.
them.
And I wouldn't say that, not to say that we shouldn't reach out to our family and friends as well, but that's another avenue that we can look at. The other thing I was thinking about, and it maybe goes back to the whole persistence piece, and I think this is really, and okay, I'm in learning and development, so of course I'm going to say this, but I really feel like keep learning is so critical. I mean, it's critical in life that we keep learning, but I think that there is a possible trap for people who have been in working a long time to believe, I know everything there is to know, and the other is, I'm not able to learn anything else because I am too old. Oh, I can't figure out AI. I can't figure out, this technology. I'm too old for that. Like social media platforms, these things, like we tell ourselves we can't. And I think that the best way that you can stay relevant in the industry is to continue to keep learning. And frankly,
Awesome.
if you're looking at your resume and people are saying, "Oh, you just took this class on LinkedIn on generative AI and you're 60 years old," all of
Ah,
a sudden that becomes like a talking point of like, now you've created this thing of like, this is a person who is continuing to learn. And as an organization, I want people who are just continuing to learn, who versus say, I know it all and there's nothing left. So I think that's a great way to combat. It's also a great way to combat, I think, a little bit of some like mental distress, because if you're learning something, you're doing something. You're
Yes.
active. You're not just waiting for the fates to give you a job. You're going and you feel like, okay, I learned this thing and now I'm going to learn this thing. And it keeps you active. It keeps your brain active. And I think that's just going to only help you as you're looking for new opportunities.
I love that. I love that idea. I love it.
wow.
Thank you so
I
much,
made me
Marigenia.
made me think
I
of
want to
mom.
invite Adam again, Marigenia. I have like 10 other topics I want to talk to him about.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it. You know what? That made me think of my mom. Mommy, I mean, she has a TikTok account. She's active on Instagram. I mean, she tries to, like, I just showed her how to share her iPhone screen with me. So she's very up to date that way. But we're talking about people on the workplace and people looking for jobs and people that are putting themselves out there. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it was great. Again, Marigenia, I would love to have Adam again. Just put the date.
Let's find a different topic because it could be ageism part two, or it could be something else regarding hiring, anything.
Yeah.
Because
And then
Sure.
we can do a
Well,
little bit of it
thanks
in
for having me.
Spanish, Adam. We can do a little bit of it in Spanish. Lo
Es
podemos hacer en
posible que sí, es
español.
posible que sí, es posible.
un poquito podemos
Mira,
decir.
dijo, es posible que sí.
Nosotros hablamos en español y él contesta en Spanglish. No, pero lo que iba a decir es, a lot of the things that you have just said go, it goes beyond ageism. It's
Yeah,
just as a human, you wanna keep learning, you wanna have the right attitude, you wanna keep in check the biases that you might have. That's really great.
And it goes both
yeah,
way, what you were saying about taking courses and keep yourself, if you're a young person that just graduated and you haven't had find a job
yeah,
yet, and you're looking in, you can be looking at any kind of job. Maybe there are other courses that you can take that will keep
exactly.
you
They're even more
motivated and
encouraged. I
connected so that you don't go down the spiral?
I think the older generation needs more encouragement with regards to taking trainings because they might fall in they might be on the mind frame of, oh yeah, no, I know it all. And what
And
I
then the
don't
younger,
know, I can't learn.
but the younger generation, Marigenia, and we're not gonna go there because it's a whole different topic. They're so stressed out in their job hunting process. The level of stress is just it's hard. It's really hard. It's not even fair.
Especially when you read all these companies laying off people. Oh, that's
Yeah.
stressful
There's a
for
lot of talent
anyone,
in the
not just
marketplace and a lot of competition.
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Okay, well, are we ready for the rapid fire questions?
I guess I'm
I
ready.
guess I
We'll
guess he
find
doesn't
out.
have a choice.
I guess,
Ana
yeah.
Rosa, is there anything else you wanna talk about, or
No, no,
maybe
no.
we
I'm just gonna close by saying, Adam, thank you so much for saying yes, for your knowledge, and for your self-awareness and your willingness to show up from a place of, vulnerability and trying to really make a difference. Because, like you were saying, human resources are just people too. But we need people that are more self-aware and wanting, to really make a difference in the experiences that others are going through. So thank you for showing up here, and
Thanks
for
for having
sure
me.
we're gonna have you again. Believe me, I'm telling you.
All
So
right. Well, no, it's a great conversation. I love the topic, and I think it's great that you're bringing it up and you're bringing it to your listeners to open that discussion more broadly.
yeah. So Marigenia, go ahead with your rapid
Okay,
question.
so these
Okay.
rapid questions are mainly based on the fact that we wanna get to know you a little better.
Okay.
So
We'll find out if you want to have me back after these rapid fire
yeah,
questions.
exactly.
So, okay, this is I get it.
Espe-
I get it. Okay, this is a test. All right, fair enough.
Especially
Okay, I'm
question
ready.
number one.
Okay.
Question number one, Adam. What is the best sandwich?
What is the best
Your
sandwich?
favorite sandwich.
Oh, well, I like all kinds of sandwiches, but I do think that the BLTA is great. So bacon, lettuce, tomato, avocado with bread,
Oh,
very good bacon is always good.
okay.
Especially if the BLT, especially if you add cheese to it. But anyways, that's a different story. Okay, what is the scariest animal for you?
Oh, scariest animal. Okay, so the scariest I do not like rats. It's something about the thing is it's the combination of the size and the really long tail with no hair on it. It's just something, and the fact that they're so smart. I've read all these things about how smart they are,
You've
and
done
like
research?
they are so tough. Like they are yeah, I read this whole book about rats in New York. It
Oh
was
my
both
God.
amazing and terrifying, but they're incredible creatures, but just something about them. And if it's a mouse, I don't like, but like it's the size, they're kind of cute, but rats,
Uy.
yeah.
Qué asco.
No me gusta, no me gusta.
No, a mí
No.
tampoco.
Okay. No, a mí tampoco. Okay. What's in your nightstand?
A lot of books that I've read and can't find a place in the house to store. So just
Like which
stacks,
one?
and a
Mention a
lot
book.
of books that I should read that I haven't read. We'll just
Oh,
say that too. Yeah.
Okay.
But a book that I have actually, there's a book that I'm reading right now, which is on my nightstand. It's called Smart Brevity, and which is, I mean, it's a personal challenge for me because I don't have any problem filling space. But it's just about how do you get to your point as succinctly and quickly as possible, both from an email format and from a speaking format. And the version on my nightstand is actually in Spanish because I wanted to just get
Practice.
a better sense of like kind of more like corporate business Spanish and not just conversational Spanish. So I have it in both languages.
oh, that's so cool.
Mm.
That's so cool. Okay. What was your first concert?
My first concert was James Taylor at the Columbia River Gorge.
Oh, I was there.
Wow.
I've seen James Taylor at the Gorge. It was amazing. Well, he's amazing, and that
Yeah,
venue is absolutely breathtaking.
yeah, it was
Okay.
beautiful.
What is the most used app on your phone?
The most used app on my phone, um, pro, oof, probably my pod. Well, no, it's Spotify. Spotify for sure, because I'm either listening to Spotify in the car, or like if I'm playing video games, I'm playing music. Yeah, Spotify, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Including Call Your Sister is what on Spotify.
Time to
So
call your
time to
sister.
call your
There you
sister. Yep,
go.
yep.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, you can listen to one song only for the rest of your life. What is that song? And it's not on loop, but when you go listen to one song,
Oh. Okay, so I have my top 5 favorite songs of all time, and so like you would think that the number one song would be it, but now I'm thinking about, okay, it's not my favorite song of all time, but I think "The Gambler" by Kenny Rogers would be
oh,
one that, just because it's kind of light, it's kind of
The
get your toe
Gambler?
tapping. It's
I
got
don't
a
think
good it's got a good
I've
good
heard it.
moral to it about, like, like knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them and all that stuff. And anyway, probably "The Gambler."
Okay,
But
good.
that's a tough
Okay.
question. That's a tough question.
Yeah, I know. Okay, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
So I'm what I refer to as a West Coast extrovert, which is like a little bit of a blend of them. So the way I describe it is that if you and I were in an elevator and I didn't know you, and you don't initiate conversation with me, I won't say a word to you, because I'm like, I want to give you your space. But if you start talking to me, I'm happy to talk with you the entire ride. So it's like I won't necessarily, I like talking with people, so I'm probably more extroverted than introverted, but I'm also very conscious of not wanting to bother people and get in people's space. So I've coined that as West Coast extrovert.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
That's very
That's a
cool.
good explanation.
Okay, more related to this podcast, what does brotherhood mean to you? We say sisterhood, but in your case, brotherhood.
Well, I think that, so I have an older brother, 3 years older than me, and I would say there is an element of a person who knows you about as well as another person can know you without being yourself. They have this lived experience where they've seen you grow, they've seen you at your best and your worst, and it's almost like you have this built-in understanding of who this person is that allows you to just skip over all those things and just get to what's next. So it's like, I don't need to talk. My brother and I could like not talk for 5 months, and then when we talk, it's like we talked the other day, because you have this built-in connection.
Love
That's
that.
awesome.
I
That's
love
awesome.
that.
Okay, two more. If you
Okay.
could have dinner with any person, dead or alive, who would that be?
Ooh. Well, I think my go-to is Tom Hanks, because I just think he just seems like such a nice guy. It seems like he'd be funny, really easygoing, very very kind of sociable, and he's done so many amazing things and been in so many movies. I could imagine just sitting with him and talking about movies, talking about history. So Tom Hanks.
Oh my God,
Oh,
I love the
that's awesome.
answer.
Okay, last question. Describe your life in 5 words. The rest of your life in 5 words.
The rest of my
Diantre.
life
Diantre, Marina, that's a tough one.
in
Okay.
5 words.
It
This is
doesn't have
rapid
to be
fire. I
a
have to write this
sentence.
down. I have to do I've been putting a spreadsheet together and like cutting. Now, we did talk about smart brevity, but this is pushing it, I think. Okay, 5 words. Uh,
It doesn't have to be a sentence. It could be just 5 random words.
okay. Okay, hold on. Just give me a second here. Can we edit this out, like, while I'm doing this counting here? Okay, so let's see. Okay. Never stop learning, endless curiosity.
Oh
How
my
about that?
God, I love
Oh,
that.
that's awesome.
That was amazing. Maria, you nailed the questions. Bueno, I think we have to wrap up. So
Okay.
again, Adam, thank you so much for being here. And
Thanks so much for having me.
thank you for showing up with so authentically.
Well,
Oh,
and thank
very
you
welcome.
for the wisdom.
Yeah, yeah.
Mucha sabiduría.
Sí, súper auténtico, me encantó. Bueno, pues hasta la próxima, gente. Any questions that you have regarding ageism, comments, experiences that you want to share,
Even questions for
questions
Adam, we
for
can pass
Adam,
them on.
you can share them here and we can direct you to Adam. Así es que hasta la próxima. Gracias.
Thank you,
Problema.
Adam.